Autumn is sowing season, when dust clouds rise over the nation's grains belt. But right now, it's war clouds casting an ominous shadow. Australia is feeling the impact of the Middle East conflict. Essential inputs such as diesel and fertilizer have skyrocketed in price. The cost of diesel has almost doubled, and in some regions still in short supply.
Australian agriculture is very heavily reliant on imported inputs, particularly fuel, but also nitrogen fertiliser. The vast majority, I think it's around 90% of Australia's urea imports, which is the main form of synthetic nitrogen, are imported.
NPK fertilisers, so named because they contain three primary nutrients for plant growth: nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium, are the most common nutrient types used for broadacre cropping in Australia and are normally cost effective. Not so at present. The price of NPK has surged by as much as 75%, up to $1,400 a tonne, if you can procure it. Australia has become increasingly reliant on imported fertilisers. At last count, about 85% of it comes from overseas, around 8 million tonnes, worth about $4 billion annually. And most of it comes from the Middle East, from Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates and from Qatar. So this Middle East conflict is having a major impact for Australian farmers. Across Australia, imported fertiliser supplies have dried up. As rural supplier, the merchandise seller Doug Robinson of Bacchus Marsh, Victoria, knows all too well.
The last bulker bag that's pre-sold, we'd probably have another 20, 25 tonne in here. But right now, with a shortage, we're struggling to even get a price, let alone delivery. I mean, diesel's hurting all our small businesses anyway, but from a fertiliser perspective, just made it very, very much worse for us. And also the farmer, which is the source of everything we do.
I think this conflict is a bit of a wake-up call that if we are going to be resilient in a more conflict-prone world, in a world that's likely to experience more disruptions in the future, we do need to reduce our reliance on those inputs.
But there are some farmers largely unaffected by events overseas. This is millet, a cereal crop growing at Lockington in northern Victoria. It's thriving because of an innovative approach by farmer Grant Sims. The former electrician came back to the family farm 20 years ago with a fresh approach to agriculture. Always experimenting to find better ways to do things, about 6 years ago, Grant did a course on making fertilisers. Then he started brewing them, and ever since has done countless field trials, some in conjunction with major industry bodies. He says the initial aim was to find cheaper ways to grow better crops.
We found, the yield and quality was much the same, but making them ourselves, we could obviously reduce our input costs and then, take a bit of that pressure where we're not governed by, what's going on internationally. We can just do it all in-house.
Countless experiments later, Grant has developed and refined a range of fertilisers brewed in these tanks, for both their own farm and for sale to other farmers.
We'll go around and get the pump going, we'll make sure that filter's cleaned. So we don't do a lot, we make about 300,000 litres a year. We also buy in some specialty products that we can't make, that have got unique roles that we want to do. And with the liquids, we inject some of it into the soil with our seed. Focus on getting balanced nutrition for the plant. Once the crop's up, then we'll use all these liquids and we apply a lot of foliars on the crop. And we find with the foliars, it's a very efficient way to bypass the soil and get exactly what the plant needs into it. And when we do this, we're essentially stimulating the plant to photosynthesize at a higher rate.
That means the plant sequesters more carbon and lifts the nutrient content.
So we get greater live weight gains for our animals and basically eliminates the need to deal with insecticides or fungicides.
Grant says plant diseases are simply evidence of deficiencies in minerals or nutrients. The challenge is finding out what's lacking and applying a remedy.
So we get a tissue test of the plant, so it's sort of like a blood test. We can see whatever it's lacking, and then if we address that through foliar, we can see really good crop response in root growth, but also yield, and basically disease and insects just disappeared.
The Sims family grows a range of crops on about 3,500 hectares, all of which gets the homemade fertiliser treatment, proof that it can work on a large scale. It's now about 20 years since the enterprise stopped using the common imported fertilisers, especially in pellet or granular form. Grant says more than half of that gets locked up in the soil and can't be used by the plant, a very expensive waste. The current shortage and cost of imported fertilisers also has farmers questioning how to apply fertilisers more effectively. Grant says the answer is simple, in liquid form, spraying the leaves, known as foliar application. And that's what's happening here. Dairy farmers Kate Myrams and husband Peter Neves produce milk from around 200 irrigated hectares at Newry in Victoria's east. They too have moved steadily away from synthetic fertilisers long before this current supply crisis.
6 years ago, we set out to learn how to transition our soil from a situation where it was heavily dependent on artificial fertilisers, herbicides, to a soil that's biologically thriving and alive and has got enough soil microbiome that it's fixing nitrogen and it's helping solubilise phosphorus and it's accessing other nutrients and minerals out of the soil.
Their journey began with the question, what exactly is healthy soil? And how do you achieve it on a working farm?
By 2021, we were convinced that we were growing as much or more feed on the soil health bays as we were on the conventional bays, and we were using different inputs, not necessarily less inputs, but different inputs.
They quickly learnt whatever they did had to be friendly to soil microbes.
So we have to stop sowing seeds with fungus, pesticide and herbicide on them. We have to stop really short grazing rotations. We need plants to grow really big and robust and high energy before grazing, and short grazing duration, and then allow a really good recovery time again.
Both Kate Myrams and Grant Sims practice what's called regenerative agriculture, a broad term that essentially about getting the soil and the land into a natural balance.
Regenerative agriculture aims to foster natural, functional ecosystems in order to provide everything that plants need to grow, whereas typical modern agricultural practices rely on technology.
So we're talking about moving to a system that's biologically available plant nutrients rather than chemically available plant nutrients. But there's a bridge to get from one to the other, and that bridge has been my focus.
It has meant a move away from the reliance on chemicals such as synthetic fertilisers, insecticides and pesticides. This dairy farm has cut the amount of NPK fertiliser by around 90%. That has meant immense savings that are being reinvested into other inputs such as lime, gypsum and trace elements.
Since taking these practices across our whole farm in 2021, we are seeing that we're growing 450 kilos of feed per 1 kilo of nitrogen applied across our whole farm, averaged over a whole year. And that's significantly more than what the district average is.
Nationally, the price hike in conventional fertilisers is causing farmers to examine their fertiliser efficiency. Ellie Court from Soils for Life, an independent charity that supports farmers in adopting regenerative practices, says there's another clear message. More diversity on farm makes an enterprise more self-sufficient and resilient during tough times such as drought.
This really goes to the heart of the matter and why we are needing so much external fertiliser inputs, external chemical inputs in our agricultural systems, is because we've moved away from complex ecosystems towards very simplified monocultures. And nowhere in nature do you find monocultures. Monocultures do not function very well.
So that means planting a range of species that all play a different role in soil health.
What we've got here is a multi-species perennial pasture, and so we've been sowing a huge diversity of species here because nature loves diversity.
And Kate, it's really what's under the ground that's even more exciting.
Yes, what's under the ground is very exciting. Like 6 years ago, I wouldn't have believed this, but now we, really have proof that what's under the ground is fixing nitrogen for us, and it's replacing a huge amount of urea that we would have been purchasing otherwise.
Animals also play a beneficial part.
And those animals can help recycle nutrients and build up the natural fertility of that landscape so that the need for external nitrogen inputs is reduced.
Grant Sims' approach is seeing a spike in interest.
So we can go out into the bush and get native fungi and native microbes, put them in these tanks and grow them. When we look at soil tests and they're measuring what's plant available and as to how much we need to put on, we need to look up what's totally in the soil and how do we start utilising that, not to mine it, but to cycle it and get it working more efficiently, and that's through biology.
The global pandemic a few years ago saw major shortages to crucial imports and a similar impact on Australian agriculture, as well as increased prices for food. That may yet happen again.
Horticulture is particularly exposed, and so we may well see the price of food go up. We may also see farmers choosing to plant fewer acres because they're less confident that they can make a profit.
Many see this as another wake-up call, highlighting that the sector needs to be much more self-sufficient, reducing our need and reliance on inputs and increasingly unstable supply chains.
We need to be thinking about that side as well in order to have a holistic and sustainable approach that will deliver us long-term food security.
Those on this path caution that it takes time, several years on average, to get most conventionally farmed land back into balance. But they say the benefits are obvious and everywhere. Greater self-sufficiency and sustainability, better soils, better crops, better pastures, better livestock, better bottom line. All in all, better, more profitable, more sustainable farming.